Welcome to Triple Zeros. I'm Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, the Facebook page. Did I say that already? Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Also find the podcast at Triple Zeros, at 3 Zeros Pod on Facebook and Twitter. Got a lot to get into, man. Of course, the NFL season is winding down, but the NBA season is picking right up where we left off just a couple of months ago. It was 70-some-odd days between the end of the NBA season last year and the current season. It's all the same year. Time is running together. Time is a flat circle, something I say a lot in sports when things recur like this. But we'll start off with the NFL, and the playoff picture is actually coming into shape right now. We've had a few games that didn't really decide things, but kind of set the stage for what is to come in Week 17. We'll get to that in another episode. We got to talk about what's happening right now. The Green Bay Packers are the cream of the NFC, and that's an important distinction because for a few weeks there, we weren't really certain exactly what we're seeing. And now, that's not to say that the Saints are far off. The Saints are right behind them. Both are still in contention for the top spot. The Packers would need, I think, a victory or a Saints loss to indeed clinch it that way. And so that's the top two teams. But the Packers, what we saw them do against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday night was nothing short of impressive because we knew about the ability of them for the offense, right? We know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. We know what Devontae Adams is going to bring to the table. We know what Aaron Jones is going to do for this offense. But what we didn't know was how the defense was going to hold up against a rushing attack such as Tennessee's. I've actually written for Last Word on Pro Football, and as part of the Bears' recent surge, their running game has kind of picked up. And we talked about how, one of the teams that they faced along the way has been the Packers and how their defense is middling at best. And for them to respond in the way they did, 40-14. Like, I know the game was in snow, and I know it's from Tennessee, right? So they're not used to the cold, but that's a pretty damn exclamatory victory right there. I'm not sure how you parse that and make it a negative. Now, I will say that the Saints are hoping to get Michael Thomas back for the playoff run, so maybe that bumps them up. But I think at best that just makes them even because I'm not sure that right now if I put these two teams on the field that I'm taking the Saints over the Packers. That's not happening. I'm not doing that, especially if the game is in Lambeau with the snow like that. The more impressive part, and it gets better for the Packers, and again, to understand how impressive this all is, you got to understand that I am a Bears fan, and this is just paining me to actually have to go through this step by step, which is why I'm trying to be as thorough as possible in what I'm saying. They managed to hold Ryan Tannehill to 121 passing yards. He had a touchdown and 2 picks thrown. But here's the thing. Derrick Henry rushed for 98 yards. Now, you might say, okay, still got close to 100. Now, this is Derrick Henry we're talking about here. This is the guy that over the past month has gone 147, 215, and 178 yards. He had a 60-yard game in Cleveland. So, I mean, I guess he was due for the clunker there. But before that, it was 3 straight 100-plus yard performances, 103, 133, 178 in reverse order there. So, look, Green Bay is rounding into form at the right time, and this is for a team who's already they're leading the league in scoring. They're third in yards, I believe, or something along those lines. I know they're first in scoring. This is scary stuff, and I say that because my Bears have to go and play them Week 17. Now, hopefully, something happens along the way. Either the Bears jump out to a big enough lead, or the Saints do, or the Saints lose enough where Green Bay decides that they're going to just go ahead and rest the starters. But I doubt that's going to happen. I see them playing this one all the way through, which is going to get really dicey for the Bears, and they better come to play because their defense hasn't been as great as holding up against the run or the pass of late. And so while the offense is rounded in form, we're seeing them look a little bit like, I don't want to say the Packers because they're nowhere near the Packers in terms of efficiency or being the threat to score from anywhere. But they're going to need that defense step up because Green Bay's defense has definitely been doing its thing. Like I said, holding Derrick Henry to less than 100 yards is an impressive feat. I'm not. There's no way to go to dance around that and say otherwise. Now, flipping over to the Titans, they're capped. Right now, I could see them still going on some kind of a magical hot streak run because I think that every team that they would face that are threats in the West, in the AFC, are vulnerable against the run. The Steelers shouldn't be, but they are. Miami is. Baltimore has been. They shouldn't be, but they are. Cleveland, while they're in right now, you can get some running yards on them. And especially with Tennessee. Now, the Chiefs, that's how you would, in theory, want to keep them off. It didn't really work for Atlanta, but Atlanta can't do much of anything right, so we're not going to really hold them for that. But if Tennessee can make a run, but I think they're a team that if they were to get to the Super Bowl, they would fall to a team like a Green Bay or a New Orleans, or possibly even a Seattle, Tampa Bay. Like, I don't know if there's any team in the top 5, any of the guaranteed teams who are in the playoffs in the NFC that I'm taking, that I would say the Titans are beating necessarily. Now, that's not to say that I would pick the other side with confidence, especially if we're talking about the Seahawks and the Buccaneers. But the Titans are capped. They remind me a lot of the 49ers of last year with a little bit more pizzazz because Tannehill could do a little bit more as a passer. He's a little bit smarter, just a little bit. That's an exaggeration or understatement, or intentionally, than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I still think that they're capped because when he's relied upon to be that guy, that's not necessarily what you want, Raymond. So I like what the Titans do. I like the fact that they stay within their framework or their offense. They don't try to ask their guys to do too much. However, I don't think that they're able to. I don't think they're going to be able to go very deep. And if they do, again, it happens. The sun even shines on dog crap, right? But I just think that, and I'm not saying the dog crap. I'm saying like every maybe a better one. Even a garbage can gets a steak. No, that's still calling them bad. Point is, every team can have, lightning in a bottle. It can happen. My fear is they'll get there and it'll look just like that. They'll be competitive, but when it comes down to it, I'm not sure if I'm willing to put my chips in the middle of the table and bet on a Ryan Tannehill. Still to this right now. Obviously, in the AFC though, the Chiefs are the cream of the crop there, so that's not a surprise. I mean, I'm not breaking any news or breaking ground here with that one. Now, moving back to the NFC, the New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara taking on the Minnesota Vikings set a record, tied a record really, with 6 touchdowns, tying Gil Sayers and a few others, just to let you know how long it's been. With 6 touchdowns in the game, 22 rushes, 155 yards on the ground, 6 scores. The Vikings could not stop him. It just looked awful. I don't want to say they quit, but Jeff Gladney had a horrible day. They held Dalvin Cook to 70-some-odd yards. He had like 85 on the day total. Yeah, the Vikings, for all their surge, proved to be a paper tiger. Meanwhile, the Saints got by without Drew Brees. Now they're getting by without Michael Thomas. And they're going to have both of those guys for the playoffs. So again, the Saints are not a team to be written off. This could be as chalk of a postseason, I think, as we've seen in quite some time, where I honestly, at this point, think that we're going to see Packers, Saints, and Chiefs, Bills. And this is from a person who was, for the longest, touting the Steelers as a team to beat, or at least a team to beat, one of the top 4. Clearly, I can't put them there now, even with their comeback against the Indianapolis Colts. It's top 4 right now that are the only ones. We saw what the Bills just did to the Patriots. Now, granted, the Patriots are not the Patriots, but the Bills aren't the Bills either, right? This is a new brand of Bills football. So I would count on them more than I count on what I've seen from the Steelers all year. Saints, Packers, Chiefs, Bills. That's my final 4. Chalk as you can get. Who can get hot? Steelers and the Bucks, and that's my factor fiction. Something new we're going to try out this week, and which team I think can go the first. We're going to go between NBA and NFL. two either team or players that I think are going to be contenders, pretenders, which one's real, which one's got staying power, longevity, all that kind of stuff. It'll vary depending on what the topic necessarily is. But in this case, which of these two playoff bound teams do I see actually having a chance to make a run? And to be honest, it's the Buccaneers. The Steelers, for all of the lauding of their ability to come back against the Colts, right? They're still limited in what they can do offensively because of Ben's inability to do some things. They don't do the play action. They don't do rollouts too much. They're not doing too much bootlegging and all that kind of stuff. They don't run the ball particularly well. And so you look over at the Bucs, and they can do all of those things. I mean, Brady's not moving, but they've got the weaponry where he's not necessarily having to. And if he can avoid the mental gaffes, he's been fine. They've sleptwalked, though. They're both slow starting teams now. A Steelers-Bucs Super Bowl might not actually have any scoring until the fourth quarter. And even that might be a game of field goals and defense. But if I'm picking one, I think I'm picking the Buccaneers. And that's because of their competition. I don't think the Steelers can match up with either the Chiefs or the Bills and what those two teams are doing offensively. Because I don't think the Steelers have it in them right now. I just don't. I know what they just did to the Colts. I get it. I totally understand, and I know people are out there like, what the hell are you talking about? But I would put more faith in the Buccaneers' ability to put up points against the Saints and the Packers and even the Seahawks than I would for the Steelers against the Bills and the Chiefs. And I'm not sure I'm taking the Steelers over the Titans right now. Again, this is from a person who was picking the Steelers to run the table. This is not an overcorrection. This is just talking about the state of what I see things now. 28-24 in that Colts game. 2 fourth quarter touchdowns, 3 touchdowns from the third quarter on. Indianapolis didn't score again. I get it. I get it. Steelers made a hell of a comeback to show you that they still got it. But what if? What if I were to tell you I was never a big believer in the Colts anyway? Because that's what the case is. I was never a fan. I never thought that they were that. I thought Phillip Rivers was still Phillip Rivers, and he's proving to be so. Well, I wouldn't say that. Let me take that back. They're limited. The Colts are just limited because they don't have that dynamic kind of passer. I think in today's NFL, and that's what limits like I just talked about with the Steelers. If you can't do all the things and move in the pocket and that kind of stuff, you're kind of limited right now. That's what makes Aaron Rodgers so deadly and why he's got a really good shot at winning MVP. It's his to lose at this point. Because not only does he have the mind of a veteran quarterback, but he still's got the legs of, I don't want to say a young guy because he doesn't move like he used to, but he moves really well, especially, for a quarterback. Now, Phillip Rivers, on the other hand, you know where he's going to be like the 12 o'clock, whatever. Bad analogy. You know where Rivers is going to be in the pocket, okay? Oh, that was awful. And so while you see them falling in the playoff picture, I just don't know that it's a surprise. I think it was more surprise that the Colts fell down as much as they did. Again, they scored 3 straight touchdowns and only won by 4 points. So they were again starting slow. This is the Bucs. The Steelers are the Bucs. That might be a Clocker Sports article. I got to do the running back one. That might be an off-season one, though. I think I'll push the running back for the off-season. That's a nice time filler. This one, though, more playoff matchups. Bucs-Steelers. Would you want to see Bucs? I would want to see Bucs-Steelers. That'd be good. Last hurrah for both guys, more than likely. Maybe get a little Bucs Saints in the NFC Championship game. But the Colts are just, that's not. So, therefore, the Steelers' victory, I mean, yeah, great comeback. Largest comeback in the history in the Mike Tomlin era. Great stuff. Don't buy it. Buccaneers, I just think that they're too talented. There's just a lot of talent. That's not to say the Steelers don't have the talent. I think the Steelers are just limited so much by what Ben doesn't do now compared to what he used to do. Ben was never the most accurate guy. So when it goes and he doesn't have the mobility, or he doesn't have the mobility and he loses some accuracy, it's way worse. It's like Cam now. We saw Cam, as I've said many times on this show, is my favorite active player in the NFL. Cam is probably done. And I say that holding up, knowing damn well that probably means definitely. That's fine. Cam, that's what it is. That's what it is with Ben. You don't have the ability to move around like he used to. You're kind of statuesque back. Maybe that's an issue of getting the line better, but your accuracy is waning, fella. That's a problem. It was on. You were on point late in this game. I get it. But it wanes too much. The slow starts. You're not going to be able to do that against every team. The Colts aren't. Again, I'm not that big of a believer in the 10-5 Colts. They might make it in by virtue of the Cleveland Browns being the Cleveland Browns. I'm not sold. Not sold there. The Jets. I don't know if anybody told the New York Jets this or not, but the point of the NFL and when you're a bad team, I mean a really, really bad team, is to lose as many games as possible. And so when you look at the New York Jets, who had the number 1 overall pick sewn up for 14 weeks this season, 14 weeks of this season they've had it sewn up. They've now won back-to-back games, scoring 23 points in each contest, beating not only 1, but 2 current playoff teams in the Rams and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns had to play with short notice with 4 receivers down. So you give them, I don't want to say a pass, because they still lost, but they lost by a touchdown to a team playing with some scrubs on the practice squad. They should have just ran down the throats. I don't know how that didn't happen. Although the Jets' run D has been kind of stingy. I've seen that in a few games. Point being, the Rams, though, 23-20, that was just an awful showing. That's one of those, and that was in L.A., because I always want to look at that game and say, damn, that's that East Coast travel for those West Coast. No. West Coast travel for an East Coast team, and they thumped, well, they didn't thump them, but they won for their first game. Rams, or the Jets rather, have said, screw it, we're out of the tanking business right now. They got 2 wins now. I mean, once you fall out of the 1 spot, I guess it was a wrap. But you could have tried to get back in. Jacksonville's not winning another game. Jacksonville went out of their way to tank. Mike Glennon was in that game against the Bears until he could no longer be in that game, and it didn't matter. But the Jets are on a winning streak right now. And therefore, the Jaguars, congratulations to Jaguar fans. You guys will be drafting Trevor Lawrence. Congratulations, Trevor Lawrence. We know where you'll be. You'll be in Jacksonville next year. Congratulations. Congrats. I mean, hey. Now, I will say this about Jacksonville. Usually these are bad situations, but Jacksonville has a very engaged ownership group who has positive reviews in not one, but several sports industries, including professional wrestling and soccer. So, good hands, good climate. You don't have to go to, the Jets. Listen, I think the Jaguars have shown the willingness to be innovative in trying to make things work, while the Jets have shown the ability to be regressive in the most fertile of situations, right? The best laid groundwork of situations that you could have. You're in market 1 or 2. I think it's 1. New York is 1. You got you're the other team, but you got a legacy to be. And you screw it up every time. So anyway, long story short, congratulations to Jacksonville fans. Congratulations, Trevor Lawrence. That's a done deal. You're welcome from the Bears and Bears fans. Also, thank you for rolling over and allowing this to happen. Now, Bears gotta go and get that W against the Packers, Week 17. That's gonna be tricky, man. Bears haven't beat the Packers since 2018. Only twice since 2010, I believe. That was a win. 2010 was the last win. So that was a 3rd win. 3 wins since 2010, including good grief, man. And there were painful stuff too. NFC Championship game. Oh, I'm sorry. It hurts. It hurts to think about. there's been some brutal moments from these teams. One of the things that I can't help but think about is the championship game, NFC Championship game, when Chris Conte got caught flat-footed by Randall Cobb for that 40-some-odd yard touchdown. Or that Week 17 game a few years later, where James Anderson let the fumble stay on the ground and didn't pick it up, and then they picked it up. Jared Boykin picked it up, ran it for a touchdown. Oh my gosh, painful memories. Anyway, the point is that my Bears, have got to go into, I think this is in Soldier Field, but they got to beat the Packers in a game that the Packers are going to want, because they want home field advantage in that bye week. See, only one team gets the bye week. That's the thing. There's incentive for them. The Bears have to jump out to this early lead, and they have to bury them early. Just get it out the way. And they need or, right? Let me put it that way. That might be a better way to put it. They need a New Orleans loss. And you might not think that that's the way to live, because I know me being personally, I was conflicted about the Bears, rooting for the Bears to make the playoffs and how they'd be a quick out, but you never know what can happen. Point is, they need some things to happen for them to not have to win this one. I think they could win it. They could make the playoffs if the Cardinals lose to the Rams, and Kyler Murray might not play in that game, but Jared Goff might also not play in, which would just be a mess. The scenarios in the NFC are so convoluted, but there's more spots open in the AFC. It's ridiculous right now. The Rams, Cardinals, I touched on it there. The backup quarterbacks. This game is for playoff berth. This is insane. Both teams quarterback suffered injuries late. Goff to his thumb, a thumb that he actually dislocated and then relocated himself, popped back in himself on the field, on camera. I mean, tough. Jared Goff, a guy who you wouldn't associate toughness with, but definitely showed it on that play. And then Kyler Murray with the leg injury, suffered late in the Cardinals' loss. Now, the other interesting thing about this draft, we talked about Trevor Lawrence being a Jaguar. Another top 5 pick guaranteed will be the Dolphins in the pick that they got in the Larry Tunsil trade. What a flip and what a screw up by Bill O'Brien, and how that's a textbook, or he could write the book on how to leave an organization in ruins. Not only with this trade, but the David Johnson contract that's still going to be on the books. The lack of a top flight receiver now on that team. Guys, Will Fuller suspended. You can't count on Brandon Cooks. Kiki QT's a nice player. There's no tight end. Your aging defense. You saw J.J. Watt come out and give that impassioned speech. Meanwhile, the Dolphins sitting with a top 5 pick. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are able to bench Tua for playing poorly. Right? They're able to pull Tua, put in Ryan Fitzpatrick, and actually come back and get the W against the Raiders, 26-25, because Fitzmagic. But they can afford to do that kind of stuff and not worry about stunting Tua's growth, because they got a top 5 pick no matter what. They're pushing for the playoffs. Oh, no, they were eliminated. I apologize. They were eliminated. No, what the hell am I talking about? They're the 5th seed. I knew I was right. Gotta stop second guessing myself. Anyway, this is insane. That's a way. That's living, boy. You can tank and still try to play for the future, or play for now. Damn. If only I knew a GM that could, maximize the abilities of his roster and his draft capital in such a way. Nope, don't know anybody like that. Switching gears over to the NBA. We are seeing a rash of injuries starting off, and that's kind of troublesome. The first ones that I've noticed, well, not noticed, the first ones that jump off are Spencer Dinwiddie partially tearing his ACL. He took to social media with a lengthy post, just kind of matter-of-factly talking about his lengthy injury history and talking about all the things that he's done to get over it, and basically assure people that he will be back and he's not going to dwell on it. Good for him. You hate to see players go down so soon. And then you got Ja Morant, who came down on a player's ankle, or a player's foot, and sprained his ankle severe. Looked pretty bad. He had to get taken off the court in a wheelchair. We've recently seen Kawhi and Anthony Davis get smacked in the face, lip lacerations and stuff. You got guys resting already. And it just begs the question, first of all, are we going to see an increase in injuries like we saw in the NFL over the first few weeks, where there was just a rash of severe injuries because guys weren't ready? It's pretty truncated. It's a quick turnaround, truncated offseason for the NBA guys. They're susceptible to injuries too. Could we see an increase now? And if not, to avoid that, are we going to see more of what we're seeing already with guys resting? That's the thing. They made the new rule this year that if it's a non-national televised game, then you can rest your stars. Teams are going to be taking advantage of that, especially early on. But those two injuries stand out, and you just wonder, and they're not the only ones, but they're just the two that's, okay, all right now. They're not, Dinwiddie's the season ending, but Morant isn't, and you're just like, all right, let's hopefully we don't start seeing what we saw, again, like I said, in the NFL, something that was quite devastating for a long time. Because you just didn't have many of the top performers performing. They just weren't available. You had the Mavericks and the Clippers face off, the blowout status for the Mavericks. Again, this is what I think we would have saw in the postseason had Kristaps been available against Kawhi and Paul George. But in this game, it was just Paul George, and the Mavericks had a 50-point halftime lead. Now, they didn't win by that much, right? But 50-point halftime lead. The most in NBA history. I'm not sure that there's any way that Paul George can come back from that, because he had a chance to go out there and show that he played well. He didn't play horrible, but it was 124-73, 51-point victory. 51-point victory, fam. Oh my gosh. That's brutal. This is now, it's early in the season, so I'm not dwelling on it too much, but damn. Records being set is not what you want. And I'll be talking about some records from my favorite team that are being set that I don't like either, but damn. That's not what you want. That's not a good one. Daryl Morey got fined for an auto tweet in relation to James Harden. A tweet celebrating the anniversary of him breaking the record, and it was literally like sent out from like a service like TweetDeck or something like that. Auto tweet had a citation at the end of it and everything. Auto loaded tweet, fined. I know the NBA is anti-tampering, but this is extreme. On top of it being from an auto service, it was very benign. There was nothing worth finding him over. He didn't type anything. He just said, 1 year ago, something like that, like an anniversary, 1 year ago today, something like that. Never something super. Nothing. Now, granted, Morey is now the vice president for the Sixers, so he's not supposed to talk about stuff like this. But this was nothing, and he was there for it. So, of course, though, we know Morey and tweeting don't necessarily go hand in hand, because he should just probably put social media down. The China tweet, Hong Kong, that set off the whirlwind backlash for the NBA on from every which way. I mean, they got it from all sides, and Moore was at the center, and here he goes again, doing a little bit more. Stop tweeting, Daryl. Just deactivate Twitter. You don't need it. You don't need it. Not right now. A surprise starts right now in the NBA. We got Cleveland and Orlando both at 3-0. Now, this is the NBA's fact or fiction for the week. Which one do I think is going to be more realistic? I would have to say Orlando, just because we saw them in the playoffs before. They won't have Jonathan Isaac. Middle name is Judah. But I just think that they're a team that we've seen it, and experience matters in the NBA more than anything. Now, that's not to say that the Cavaliers won't find a way to make it in 2. But if I'm picking between the two, I'm picking Orlando. Cleveland, though, has one of the surprise scorers in the NBA this year, and that's Colin Sexton. He's averaging 27 points per game in his first 3 contests. He and Christian Wood are both doing that. That's another surprise scorer. Christian Wood down there with James Harden in Houston now. Really with John Wall. Harden just now got back. But whatever, we'll see how long he's still there. He stays there. You got Jeremy Grant with Detroit now, averaging 21 points per game over. And Markelle Fultz down in Orlando, 20.7 points per game. Now, I want to talk about KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn. If you know, you know. I have been a big fan of what Brooklyn has done for the past few years, from rebuilding their culture to flipping those assets into superstars to looking now like a championship-ready team. And now, I know you like that's lofty-ass praise, but here's why. The only question about KD and Kyrie was what level they would be at coming back and how they would fit and how they would work together. Well, KD is averaging, shooting 53% from the floor, averaging about 22, something like that, 24 points per game. But he's shooting 69% from 3. Kyrie, Mr. Disruptor, he called the media pawn, so he's a horrible guy. 61% from the floor, 56% from 3. They're one of 2 duos in the top 10 in scoring. The other one, Christian Wood and James Harden. All I'm saying is, if these 2 can stay healthy, Lake Show Brooklyn. I don't see that Lake Show Brooklyn. I don't see anybody beating this team. I don't care. Giannis, DeAndre. Meet DeAndre. Kevin been getting boomed on a little bit, but he'll get his legs back under him. He'll be swatting some shots too. Giannis don't want to see them. He don't know about that length, but that chase down from Kevin Durant's gonna be nasty. Brooklyn and Lakers. And then when we get there, I might have to go Brooklyn. You know the chip that'll be on the side of these guys' shoulders. Oh my goodness. It's not to say LeBron will let it happen. I'm just saying. AD either. Man, 53, 69% from 3. 61%, 56% from 3. That's efficiency, man. You knew KD was going to be efficient. You just want to see him do it again. He looks like he can do it again. He's moving pretty well. It's been over a year. But the Kyrie efficiency is very promising because he's not just jacking up shots. We'll see what happens when he starts slumping if he does jack up shots. But he doesn't have to. He's got somebody to take the pressure off. Incredible. And then lastly, it took Billy Donovan 3 games to call out my Bulls for their toughness, their mental toughness. 3 games. I got to go back and check what the record was for Boylen and for Hoiberg, but if they wanted Billy Donovan to be somewhere in the middle of those 2, I think he found it because we know Boylen pissed them off with the practice like right away. Hoiberg, I think, took some time, but he kind of never said anything because he was soft like that. Somewhere in the middle, but he publicly called them out for their lack of mental toughness 3 games into the season. That does not bode well. Got a lot of people trying to tell me how Billy's going to help build a culture and they're going to develop an identity. Don't see it. I wrote Pippen Ain't Easy about how this is not, I don't see Billy making a culture. That's not what he does. He got a ready-made team in OKC, basically had diminishing returns. First round exits for the last 4 years. That 5th year was his first year when they lost in the conference finals. I don't see that. This recent surge, that last run, Chris Paul. I was pushing for Chris Paul to come here. Wait till I write this numbers that count. Chicago Bulls numbers that count for Pippen Easy coming out. Hopefully I get it out tomorrow. If not, I have to wait. I don't want to wait and add another game. I want that first week to be encapsulated. Wait till you see the numbers that pop out. They're very similar things, especially after the preseason that they just had, which was kind of reminiscent of the last preseason. Look, you can tell me it's the coach, but at some point you got to put the onus on the players, and I think we're at that point. I've already been picking apart the guys that I don't like. I'm starting to believe I'm not sure that I like any of them. And look, the Bulls right now losing on a shot to a last-second three to Malcolm Lee the other night against Golden State Warriors proved that they are the worst team in the NBA. These numbers are going to bear that out, and when I tell you what they are, you're going to be like, well, damn. I mean, yeah, that's how you lose. And that's where the Bulls are right now. So Donovan calling them out 3 games is not surprising. It's very sad, though, and it's very telling. And it does not bode well going forward. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. The email address, clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can find the pod at Facebook and Twitter at 3zerospod. That's the number 3zerospod. Read the stuff, Last Run of Pro Football, pippeningeasy.com, and clockersports.com. Like I said, be on the lookout for those pairings of playoffs, Steelers and the Bucks, and the one that I think the NFL might want, and that's Chiefs-Packers. That would be a great game. So be on the lookout for those. And then, of course, the Bulls numbers that count. Just released a last word for the Bears and how they have to beat the Packers. That should be out as well. So that and much more, man. You already know what it is, though. Until the very next time, I'm gone.